The house looked quiet from the road. Its beige paint was unremarkable, blending into the suburban landscape of Paris, California. The lawn was not neatly manicured, but it was not overgrown either. It was simply a house, one of many on the street, where neighbors lived their lives, came and went, noticed very little out of the ordinary. From the outside nothing seemed wrong, nothing screamed for attention or hinted at the profound darkness within. A family was said to live there, a large family, yet mostly unseen. The blinds were almost always drawn. The children were rarely, if ever, spotted playing in the yard. It began with a single, decisive act. A 17-year-old girl who had lived her entire life in the shadows found the courage to escape. She slipped out of a window of the house, a place that had been her prison since birth. With a deactivated cell phone she took a monumental risk. She did not know exactly how the world worked, but she knew she needed help. She dialed 911. The dispatcher who answered the call heard a voice, quiet, frightened, but determined. The young woman spoke of her sisters and brothers of being held captive. When the first deputy arrived, his body-worn camera was recording. This small lens would become the world's window into a scene of unimaginable neglect. The footage begins quietly. The deputy approaches the front door. He is met by Louise Turpin. She appears slightly confused by the police presence, as if she were merely being bothered on an ordinary Sunday morning. The deputy explains that he is there for a welfare check, prompted by a call from one of her daughters. The camera captures her hesitant expression. The camera follows the officer as he steps across the threshold. The scene inside begins to come into focus. The air is foul. The interior is dark and cluttered. And then, the children come into view. They are sitting, they are lying, close up on chains, close up on padlocks. As more officers arrived, the reality of their situation became undeniable. The reactions of David and Louise Turpin were captured for the world to see. Louise, initially presenting a veneer of bewildered innocence, began to crumble. Bodycam footage shows her standing in her own home, surrounded by officers. Her expression wavered between confusion, a dawning sense of dread. David Turpin was brought into the room. His reaction was one of quiet compliance. He seemed passive, almost detached, as officers questioned him. His face was a mask of placidity that betrayed little emotion. Louise was handcuffed, her face streaked with tears as she was led out into the daylight. David followed, his expression unchanging. The rescue of the 13 siblings was a slow and delicate process. The children, whose ages ranged from 2 to 29, were not just physically starved, they were starved of human kindness education experience. When the officers first entered, the children barely reacted. They were conditioned to be silent and still. The officers moved with caution, understanding that they were dealing with victims of long-term trauma. They offered them water and snacks as they were led out of the house. One by one, many blinked against the sunlight as if seeing it for the first time. Their physical condition was shocking. The older children were so severely malnourished that officers initially mistook them for young teenagers. At the hospital, a team of doctors. The children were delighted by the simplest things. After the arrests, a painful question echoed through the community and across the country. How did this happen? As journalists and investigators dug into the Turpins' past, a disturbing pattern of missed signals and near discoveries emerged. The family had moved several times from Texas to California, effectively resetting the clock on any suspicions that may have been forming. In their Paris neighborhood, residents later recalled oddities they had noticed but never fully understood. They saw the children marching in circles in an upstairs room late at night. They noted that the family would install Christmas decorations but leave them up for months. The Turpins had also used a legal loophole to hide their children in plain sight. David Turpin had registered their home as a private school, the Sandcastle Day School, with himself as the principal. Following the arrests of David and Louise Turpin, the legal process began to move forward with methodical deliberation. The Riverside County District Attorney's Office filed a multitude of felony charges against the couple, painting a legal portrait of the horrors uncovered in their home: torture, false imprisonment, child endangerment, abuse of a dependent adult. The evidence against them was overwhelming. The primary evidence was the children themselves, their physical condition, their brave testimonies. And then there was the body cam footage, the irrefutable visual record. Ultimately, to spare their children further trauma, the Turpins changed their pleas. In February 2019, they pleaded guilty to 14 felony counts. This admission was a pivotal moment. The sentencing hearing was the final public act of reckoning for David and Louise Turpin. They were forced to sit and listen as their children spoke directly to them about the pain they had caused. Two of the adult children chose to read victim impact statements in court. Their words described their suffering, and also held a remarkable sense of hope for the future. One daughter spoke of reclaiming her life. She spoke of going to college. She spoke of becoming an engineer. A son spoke of learning to ride a bike. He spoke of the simple joy of feeling the wind on his face. Before the judge handed down the sentence, both David and Louise were given the opportunity to speak. Louise, weeping, read from a prepared statement, expressing a love for her children that stood in stark contrast to her actions. Then he turned to David and Louise Turpin and sentenced them to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. It was the moment the legal consequences became final and absolute. The parents, who had once been the captors, would now spend the rest of their lives in captivity themselves. A future reclaimed. The end of the legal case marked the beginning of a new, more personal chapter for the 13 survivors. Their journey of healing is long and complex, a path they now walk with support from a community that was once oblivious. After their rescue, younger children were placed in foster care, adult siblings were moved into supportive housing, and they began to learn skills for independent living. They faced the monumental task of catching up on a lifetime of missed experiences, formal education, crossing the street, shopping for groceries, managing money. The public response was an outpouring of generosity. They went to the beach, enrolled in school, to reclaim the future that was stolen from them.